Welcome to the Chain Film Festival. I'm here with Michael Domino, the director of Mott Haven. Did you write it as well?
I wrote the short story that it was based on titled Park Avenue to Park Bench, and I was a co-writer on the screenplay with Robert Mladnich.
So I saw a little bit on the backstory of this that this is kind of it's inspired by things that have happened in your life.
Yes, it's inspired by meeting a real person in a park, and it happened to be Central Park, and then the decision to make our main character, Mike Roman, the head of a plastics recycling company, mimics my life. I own and operate a plastics recycling company.
So that highly stressed out individual that's portrayed on the screen, is that come from somewhere? Is
That
that
was
what
a
I'm
former
gathering?
self. That was a former self. Yes, yes. When my yeah, it's a testimony to what occurs when we allow our lives to get bigger than our capacity to handle them, or ask for help.
Yeah, I have to say that it's one of the most compelling uh films I've seen of someone portrayed who is going through that level of stress. I think it's really honest. I think it's not talked about enough. Um and I thought his performance, Paul Wilson, is fantastic. That is
Yeah.
so difficult to do. I really commend his work, and I had to look him up afterwards. I was just shocked that I have never seen him in anything because I was like, he looks familiar, and then I'm like, this guy is fabulous. Like,
He's a great actor. I
yeah.
know.
How did you meet? Did you was just casting?
We were casting, and Robert Davi. I was featuring our film, not this film, but the one before this one, called The Expediter, at the Buffalo Film Festival, and Robert Davi was the main attraction, celebrity for that festival, and he arrived in a helicopter like his movies. And as he walked by me, I was like, "There's Hal Stewart. That's our guy." So I cornered him in a Starbucks at the Sheraton Hotel where we were all staying, and I pitched the movie to him, and he liked the idea. So that's how we got him. And then he introduced us to he had met Paul Wilson at a film festival, Sunscreen, down in St. Pete. And he told me, I met a guy, he's a great actor. His brother is Patrick Wilson, uh, big movie star, and I think he might be good for the part. So he audio auditioned, and we knew right away that he was our guy.
Yeah, I mean the casting of these two, it's so great, and it's a different role than I've ever seen Robert in.
Yes.
And stretching himself and being this kind of calm presence. Really interesting portrayal of somebody that you've seen on screen so many times before, but they haven't been given this opportunity to play this kind of role. And it's like, oh, look at this. This is totally up his alley. Is that something that really drew him to it? That it was kind of different for him?
Yes, yes. Realizing that he was going to be the star or the co-star is always a good thing. I think
Yeah.
the majority of his roles are snippets. He appears here, he appears there, maybe 3 or 4 times in a film. Plays gangsters, hoods, hitmen, people like that, scary guys. And so I think that the fact that he would be on screen for a long time, and also playing outside of his particular fortes, attracted him to the role. Yes.
It's amazing for you to be able to like look at your life and then use it in this way, because it's a really mature way to get through something. And I think that just seeing that character so stressed out, and then seeing the way people around him are reacting too. So not only having self-knowledge that you did, but to see how people react to that, instead of like, and some people are either going to be taken up by that stress, or they're going to put it in its place and say like, no, you need to calm down. Like, he's a whirling dervish going through
Right.
life. um and to find someone in a park to wind up being The Rock.
Right,
That's
right.
such like a New York thing. It just feels like such a New York thing. It's a love letter to New York, this
Yeah, it's a New
whole
York
film.
set on a park bench, and where lives get changed from a chance meeting. A life. I believe a life was saved actually there. That the inciting incident of the film is what we call bench one. When Mike Roman is complaining about his company and payroll and blah blah blah, and then when Mike asks Robert Davi, "What's your name?" and he says he says. Oh, my name's Mike. My name's Mike Roman. And Robert Davi goes, who gives a shit? That was a ego piercing moment where, here's one person near Mike who has no vested interest in the person. He's not his boss, not his wife, he's not his best friend, play racquetball with him. He could care less. He was a total stranger, but he could detect that this man was his head was too big for his body, and he needed some deflation. And we try to portray that Robert Davi or Hal Stewart went through that in his own life, but as a radio mogul, not a plastics guy. He could see himself in Roman.
Yeah, and it's such a transformation over the course of the film too. The way it ends and where the transformation happens, particularly in the last third of the film, like all of a sudden he's like a different character, and we
Yeah.
get to see who that person was before he was, in the park and hanging out on that bench.
Yeah, it's a when I was pitching the story to Robert in Buffalo, he's very sharp man. I got maybe a third way through my pitch, and he goes, "A redemption story. You want me to play the part of this guy in the redemption story, right?" Right, it is I didn't even know it was a redemption story, and now yeah. I was like, you know what? This is a redemption story.
It certainly is, yeah, and
He told
also
me. Go ahead, sorry.
the appearance of Chuck Zito. Uh, how did he wind up getting involved? Because this, I mean, did the role change when it became Chuck Zito? Because it clearly is like the only person that could have played that role is Chuck Zito.
I know I wrote the part of the abusive landlord, Ray Pizzalongo. I get last names from realtor signs as I drive around. I drive around. I think I was up with my daughter in Rhode Island. I saw Charles Pizzalongo Realty. I'm like, that's a movie name. I just got another one for our next film. Cuzacreo. I never heard that name before. Cuzacreo. But back to Chuck. Another Robert Davi contribution. He didn't cast everyone in the film. Those were the two. but he inspired me to go out and really work hard to find people that he could see in his mind's eye. But we flew out to LA. Robert invited us. He wanted to go over the script with us. He didn't ask for a writer's credit. He deserves one. But we stayed at his house for 3 days in Chatsworth, about 40 miles from LA. And we doctored the script. This is the part where he got to put his 140 picture worth of knowledge and 40 years in the business, impart wisdom with us and translate it into the form of improve the script. And when we went out to lunch one day, he was we were getting some eggplant parmesan at this deli, and he's always working his cell phone. He's working his cell phone. Blah, 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 blah. And then, yeah, Robert, how you doing? Hey, Chuck, how you doing? I'm like, that's Chuck Zito on the song. So he told us, I'm here with these guys from New York, and they make this movie called Mott Haven. Chuck's from the Bronx. And he said, we got this guy, he's an abusive landlord. He's a real son of a bitch. I thought you might want to play the part. And Chuck says, yeah, sound good. Tell him to send me a script. And so, which we did, and then we cast him as the abusive landlord.
It seemed like they had a real connection. I could even notice it during the like, even when they were at odds. I was
Yeah,
like, those two people know each other. Like, and just because I'm an actor and I know how it like works, like I could see like that. Robert kind of couldn't get enough of Chuck. Like he was like smiling a little bit, like okay, okay. Like even when he like got him in the movie, like I thought it was a great another dimension and layer to the character, but like it felt to me like genuine, like when you work with somebody you like.
yes, they're very friendly to one another. As a matter of fact, in between shooting Mott Haven, they were shooting a series in Miami called The Paper Empire. I believe it should be appearing pretty soon online. And
Cool.
Robert Davi is a genius, like a Wall Street genius. And the Russian mob wants to bust him out and have him control the Bitcoin market.
Okay.
And Chuck
Awesome.
plays the part of a prison guard who helps him escape.
Cool.
Yeah,
Very cool. And I think there's a real testimony here for a lot of filmmakers and upcoming filmmakers, independent filmmakers, of somebody who really found a way to use things in their life to create a film, and then to take it to the next level by bringing in and collaborating with people that are experienced, but they're looking for a different opportunity in life, and they're looking for that they're at a point in their career where they want to try something new, and like you being there at that time, that's just brilliant.
yeah.
And thinking that way.
I believe in a mystical component when it comes to filmmaking. Not so in all the other areas of my life, but when it comes to filmmaking, I don't sweat it. It just seems that things just occur at the right time, at the right moment, for the right reasons. And this movie is full of that. It's really it's a spiritual movie. It's about a man on the edge, and there's a life at stake here, and then there's it talks about the process of how one person can make a difference in another person's life, and how that can then spread from the bench to the tribe, the 7 people in the building, or back to Mike's factory. The fact that that inciting moment spread. Mike's family got better, his workers got better. Robert's life, Hal's life, although he faltered and he picked himself back up, he came back into the fold eventually as a spiritual being.
Yeah, no, I think it's a wonderful film. I think it's done so well. Um and I just think it has a lot of heart too. I think that's something that's the intangible, and when you're talking about the spirituality and of the process in the film, and that you're taking, in your creative process, it shows. It totally shows. um and I'm so impressed with
Thank you.
the whole thing, the performances of the actors. I Paul blew me away though, like having never seen him in anything ever. I was like, wow, like, and have to, and looking it up that he's Patrick Wilson's brother, it makes sense that the talent runs in the family,
Yeah,
because I've loved him since this first thing I saw him in. And he seems like a really nice guy. I met him once, but
yeah, very creative, artistic family.
yeah. And I just real quick, to before we wrap things up, I was curious if shooting in New York, this is a love letter to New York, if you have any great New York stories of shooting this film and the city intervening, because that usually happens when you're trying to do something outside in New York.
Well, I could tell you, I had written a scene, and I like Koreatown. I have a small apartment on East 32nd Street, and so I go to Koreatown a lot. And there's one there's one restaurant there called Shanghai Mang, and it's my favorite Korean food. I've gotten to know the owner because I was eat there so often. And there was a man, every once in a while, he stands in front of the restaurant and he sings opera. And then I think on Wednesday night they have opera night. And so I wanted to have this. I had cast the was his name Fernando, and he's Mexican, let's get this. He's a Mexican opera singer who's famous in Russia. So and on his spare time, he sings in front of a Korean restaurant in Koreatown. So the Bronx, that neighborhood in the Bronx, Mott Haven, has a very historical, and we try to bring in the history of the areas we shoot in. And up until 1928, every piano manufactured in the United States of America was made in Mott Haven, except for the Steinway pianos. So it has but a lot of people that live there 2 generations don't even know this. So we wanted to pay respect to the piano. So Robert Davi said, and Robert Davi is an opera singer. So he sings opera. So he said, this guy that you got here to do the opera, he's okay. I mean, he's not great, but I think we should bring a piano into the park. I'm like, how are we going to get a piano into this park? We don't, we're trying to do things, like off the radar, no big permits, don't close down any streets. And so he says, I want a piano. I said, I want a piano. Figure it out, guys. So we did. We found a company, and they met us at the park, and we pushed that piano, because the best spot was on a hill. We pushed that piano up on the hill, and we got a piano player, and we went around the park. Would you like to be in a movie? Would you like to be in a movie? Would you like to be in a movie? So I got like 30 people, and Robert's like, I wanted 100 people. So we paid, whatever we paid to get a piano there, and it didn't get damaged, and we had it for 2 hours, and then put it back on the truck, and off we went.
It's really funny because watching it, I saw that piano and I was like, I bet you that was hard to do. You just know trying to make movies how hard that stuff is to do, but it was a beautiful moment. So
There is a man, he makes his living, he has a piano, and he engineered it himself to make it collapsible, and he pushes it around, he sets it up, he puts the hat out. We spoke to him, but we couldn't get him for some reason. We couldn't, it just didn't work out. So we did it ourselves.
well, it sounds like
We did a lot
you
of things
wanted it and the
ourselves.
city gave it to you. You made it work. That's
Yeah,
what
it
it's
was,
all
and the
about with filmmaking.
people of the Bronx were just so nice and sweet to us, and I would love to work there again.
Michael, do you have any upcoming projects?
I have a script. I wrote a novel called Camp Hero. Camp Hero is a military base that you see right before you arrive at Montauk Point. It's been shrouded in secrecy. It was I think they did an episode of Stranger Things, and also inspired by Robert Davi. He saw that I wanted to make another film, and he was staying in my apartment, and he could see that I had a lot of photographs of Montauk and the Hamptons, and short stories of Montauk and the Hamptons. He says, Mike, why don't you, since you want to write something, I can see you chomping at the bit, why don't you write something that connects New York and the Hamptons? The co-producer, Bob, is a real life private investigator. He's my best friend. I've known him, we've been pals for 50 years. So I had all the proper ingredients. I had the geography. Robert Davi said, do some PI thing, noir. Let's do a film noir, neo-noir. So I had my friend, who's a real character, as the basis for our main character. So I wrote the story, and then I converted it into a screenplay. We were gonna shoot it in September, but with COVID, we put it on the shelf. Hopefully, we'll do that next in the spring. And that's
Excellent.
called, once again, Camp Hero.
Awesome. And is there a website that people can check out where your films are coming out?
Did we make a Camp Hero? It's the book is for sale on Amazon. If someone were to go to Amazon Books and just put in Amazon Michael Domino Camp Hero, the book will come up, and there's like 35 very nice comments there about people who read the book. And I drove out one day with a box of 50 and just handed them out to Montauk locals, and a lot of people gave me a positive feedback that the book is true to life about Montauk people and the history and the fishing and the culture. I nailed the culture, which is important to me.
Awesome, Michael. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Same
It's
here.
it's an honor to show your film, and I want to thank you so much for joining us here.
Okay, Kirk, pleasure was all